to be very, thank you. To be very clear, the purpose of tonight's meeting, seeking feedback from residents and stakeholders on the draft Arena and Recreation Center feasibility study. The study is still draft. It's available in full. It's a 100+ page document. It's on the Connect Penetanguishene website. A draft of that was also presented at the previous June council meeting with town council. If your voices, if you have additional input that you're not able to provide tonight for whatever reason, emails to Sherry Desjardins would be appreciated. We are setting up, this has been out in the public for a couple weeks, but we are setting a deadline of June 30th for that. This way, council will have the opportunity to review and take into consideration all input that comes from the public when they do receive the final study. And that will be presented to council later in the summer. We do not yet have a date for that council meeting, but it will move forward. And we'd ask that depending on your interest in the study, that you monitor that, and you would have an opportunity to delegate to that study that item should you wish. So I think one more slide and then over to Sherry.
Great, thank you, Steve, for laying out the groundwork for this evening in the plan. So I'd like to, even though you've already heard from Steve, I'd like to officially introduce him and welcome him and his team from Monteith Brown to this session tonight. It's hard to believe that we started this journey pretty much a year ago with the steering committee for this project. So we have Steve, who you just heard from, Dennis and Sabrina from Monteith Brown here with us this evening, who are leading the consulting team. But we've also worked with Victor, an architect from MJMA, and John Frittenberg from the Frittenberg Group throughout this project. And I know many of you on the call are representing different user groups who access and program at our facilities and have had the opportunity to do some consultation with some of these folks already. So welcome to Steve, Dennis, and Sabrina, and thank you very much for all the work that you've done so far. The report is very well written, easy to follow, and we do feel that we're in good and capable hands with the work that you're doing for the town on this. And our project, just to outline for you who the steering committee has been for this project. So from representing council, we have Mayor LaRue and Councillor Sanema, who are on the call. Jeff Lees, our CAO, myself, Andrea Betty, our Director of Planning and Recreation, Planning and Community Services, who is on the call this evening. Jeff Hamlin, our Manager of Capital Projects, is with us as well. Roy Patnode, who I think all of you would probably know, and Sarah Marshall, who's helped push out the communications and connect us with the community on these pieces. I'd also just like to note that I believe we have councillors Mayette, Councillor Cumming, and Deputy Mayor Dubois on the call this evening as well.
Very good. Thank you, Sherry. So let's just jump right in here. A little bit about the study. It's something that the town has been building on this, and I'll touch on that in a moment as well. They've been building towards this for some time. We know the project overview is we're really focused around two main facilities, and then what future gaps may exist, current and future gaps. So you'll see us use acronyms PMCC, that's the Penetanguishene Memorial Community Center, that's your arena, and PCC, that's the Penetanguishene Curling Club. Both of those are municipally owned facilities on municipal land. Both of them are aging, and I'll touch on that again in a moment in more detail, and do require investment. So knowing that, knowing the age of the facilities and the other needs within the community, council authorized the study to look to the future, and specifically the future of these facilities and the evolving recreational needs of your community. So what I'll touch on and get into, as the presentation goes, more around facility and program needs, investment options, including a locational assessment, and capital and operating costs. So where are we in the process? This provides a good sense of the work that's been done. I'll focus really on the key questions along the left. So these have been our guiding questions throughout the study. What do we want to achieve with this building, with the programming and the service that it can offer? What facilities and services are needed? So that really encapsulated the first 3 phases of work for this. And then how will we get there and how much will it cost? And it's taken a large consulting team with various disciplines and expertise and across various areas to really bring that those answers to the fore. So we are in the final phase of study. We are bringing this out to the community and seeking feedback. Again, so where do we start? In addition to, there was a 2014 recreation and cultural master plan that started to lay the groundwork for this. Most notably is the community strategic plan. And this had public consultation associated with it. This is town council's, for this term of council, their plan of what they want to achieve. So this gave us a firm grounding in terms of what we were building on, some relevant objectives. The town wants to upgrade its indoor facilities for sports and physical activity. The town wants to support active lifestyles. In addition, we've looked at the curling is part of this, part and parcel, because the desire to maximize the economic potential of the municipal waterfront. Relocation of the rink would expand the range of incentives available to the town. The strat plan also made some assumptions and assertions relative to this study before, obviously this is a few years back, but this study looks at feasibility. If this complex is feasible, the town wishes by 2023 to be well advanced in terms of site selection, planning, and fundraising for such a complex. And if it's not feasible, then the town will undertake engineering and design of a renovation of the existing arena. So that's really what this study does, is it provides council with the information they need to make the decision to either invest in existing facilities or start looking towards different options within the community. So planning ahead. I mentioned their aging facilities. The PMCC was built in 1954. As arenas go, it has exceeded its lifespan and will require additional funding to maintain or replace. Any reinvestment would include the same level of functionality and level of service. It's not feasible to expand. And that, I think that last point is just an important one to be aware of. The arena is what it is. It's served the community well. It has the potential to continue to serve the community for more years. But with that potential, what that potential means is there's some restrictions to it. It will not be more than what it is. There are certain things that can't be done there, such as expanding the ice surface, expanding change rooms, adding dry land space, adding parking and whatnot. The PCC, the curling club, was built in 1973. It's in a location that council views as strategic due to its waterfront's economic potential. Based on the strat plan, relocation is desired. Next. So a little bit more about the PMCC. This is the arena. It houses, so built in 54, it's had additions in 83 and 2007. And that 2007 edition is notable in that it brought forward the Sports Hall of Fame and a new facade in particular. So that's been a key part of this facility. It's a single pad ice surface. It measures 180 feet by 85 feet. So that's 20 feet short of regulation, what new modern rinks are being built to, but was standard for the time. It contains 5 dressing rooms plus 1 for the junior team. It is well used for 10 months of the year, whether it be for ice. It has a very active ball hockey, some lacrosse, and of course there's the Brian Orser Hall and some additional dry space, meeting and banquet space in that facility. You'll see some numbers as we go through this. It does have a certain amount of repairs, life cycle repairs and replacement based on recent engineering assessments, most notably the roof itself, the rink slab and boards, things that you would get and expect in a facility of this age. There has been some structural assessments. Structurally, it is in good condition. It is a well-built facility from that perspective. But overall has a poor condition rating based on the level of reinvestment required. And expansion and upgrade potential is highly limited, including barrier-free accessibility. Now for the curling club, it's a little bit newer, built in 74, renovated in and around 2001. It's town-owned, it's operated by the club. The town does get option to use it during the summer and has for camps and such. It contains 5 curling sheets, formerly 6, but was somewhat downsized and renovated when you hosted a major curling event. So it's used by the club for about 8.5 months of the year. It does require 1.15 million in repairs and replacement over the next 20 years. Most of that is the ice plant. The curling club has been working towards upgrades of that, and they've been upgrading portions of that as they can in recent years, but more work is required. Similar to the arena, structurally it's in good condition, but overall the building condition is rated poor by town's engineers. And similarly, its expansion and upgrade potential is limited, including any additional barrier-free accessibility upgrades. Now, as we look ahead and plan ahead, it's important to also look at who's here now and who might be here in the future. So Penetanguishene has a population, a current estimate over in and around 10,000 people. The town's population is forecasted to increase by 15% by 2031. So, you know, it's notable growth. It's not enough growth to double what you have in terms of ice demand or other demand, but it is notable growth in a community of your size. So reaching around 11,400 persons in the next 10 or so years. We do know the town's population is aging. This is a growth, a trend everywhere, but some growth can be expected in all age groups moving forward. So you see that in that infographic. 61%, that's the seniors, that's the age group that's increasing the most. And really when we talk about ice sports or even field sports, as it were, the core arena market is expected to increase at a slower rate than the rest of the population. Community engagement. So prior to tonight, there was a virtual open house that was held last fall. We received almost 160 online submissions at that time. That's written up in extensive detail within the draft report. We reached out to really all user groups and potential stakeholders within the scope of work. We received 21 groups providing input. Some of those groups had one-on-one interviews, those that are particularly relevant and invested in this facility. The written submissions, those are always open and available to you. Those would be directed to Sherry's email, and we'll make sure that we give that again at the end. It should be on the Connect Penetanguishene website, and then tonight's open house. So this survey response was just one of the, I'll say, a common theme that we heard through the first open house around the need for a true community center, something that's embodies a wider variety of sports and activities for all ages and abilities. So we'll show how that's been integrated into the study's guiding principles in a moment. From that first open house, we asked about different facility components, and you see the level of support that was provided for those options that were listed. So majority support, strong support, certainly for making sure that the arena it continues to be provided, whether at existing or a new site, that an indoor walking track be introduced. That would be a new feature in your community. that space and programming for adults and older adults and children and youth be made available. Some of that can be accommodated within your existing facilities, but some of it cannot. Also, majority support for gymnasium. That would be something that's new. There is some reliance on school gyms, but that's not always reliable. Schools get first priority for that, and some dates can be challenging. And then good support for curling. We also asked about tenant space, and then we had another, and I'll come back to this as well later on, but a common request at the time when we mentioned other was for an indoor pool. So a few things that we heard from stakeholders. Strong support was expressed for a new recreation center containing multiple ice pads, gymnasium, program space, office space, storage, concession, and pro shop. I should mention the Hall of Fame space as well as part of that. Satisfaction with the current arena was mixed. Common suggestions included a need for new seating, updated change rooms, updated washrooms. There was the lack of a walking track and dryland training space, and the lack of storage that was expressed around the current location. Several organizations also expressed interest in leasing space in a new facility, the Sports Hall of Fame being among them. So as we build on that research and that input that was pulled together for the first phase of work, we realized some of our key observations from that phase. The town is committed to building a healthy community and fostering active lifestyles. A new multi-use rec center is supported by previous planning studies. The community is supportive of a new facility with modern amenities, including an indoor track, program space, gymnasium. And we do know from experiences in communities far and wide that multi-use rec centers offer many benefits, such as increased opportunities for year-round programming for all ages, the development of a community destination and community hub that is accessible, convenient, and efficient. So we established 10 guiding principles. This is broken onto 2 slides that would help guide the analysis of this plan. Building healthy community, fostering active lifestyles. Think beyond the rink. And this doesn't, I don't mean to minimize the impact of the arena. I think it's very important in every community, and certainly in a community such as yours where you have such strong support for ice sports. But looking at opportunities to maybe create more multi-use and other users and engage others within the community hub under one roof. We look to support year-round activity for facility design and wider programming. Be strategic, seek long-term solutions, enhance geographic and barrier-free accessibility. Address local needs first, and this is certainly something that we're very aware of. Penetanguishene is part of the North Simcoe community, and many groups use facilities throughout the region and vice versa. And so understanding that North Simcoe market and different sport tourism opportunities is important. We want to prioritize flexibility in design. We certainly do our best with our crystal ball to know what's coming next and what those demands might look like, but allowing for future expansion potential. We also want to encourage environmentally responsible and energy efficient designs, consider partnerships that enhance community benefit and financial feasibility, and make decisions that are financially responsible for the town and its residents. So I have a set of slides here, and I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. I don't know the range of interests around the table, but if we do need to come back to any of this, I can certainly do that through the discussion portion. Our facility, all of our needs assessments are based on demographics, public input, trends, and current usage. So they're evidence-based. They take into account local factors very strongly, take those into account. So what we looked at for facility needs, really being able to provide one indoor ice pad moving forward. So there's currently one ice pad. We don't see the demand or strong enough demand for a twin ice pad. We do know that there's pressure on the existing rink, modest pressure, and it will grow again modestly over the longer term. But the number of ice sport registrants has remained largely unchanged in recent years. About 30%, nearly one in three kids and youth play some form of ice sports. And the demand is strong, certainly for primetime ice. Moving forward, you will see in several of the options there's an opportunity for a second ice pad. We don't see that as part of the first phase of work, but a lot of, if demands change, if trends change, if access to other facilities within the region change, that could very well accelerate that consideration. So we don't see the demand for it building until about 20 years down the road. So that would be sort of a next phase of construction should council choose to build a new facility. Next. Curling. So we've had several discussions with curling as a club. They've been growing slowly in membership. Certainly COVID has thrown a wrench in that in recent years. So we do look at usage pre-COVID. All of the stats and usage information that you'll see in this report are from a pre-COVID timeframe. So nearly 200 members locally within the Penetanguishene Curling Club. There is a lease at that facility that extends to 2027. We're not suggesting that be removed anytime soon, but rather that town council not make any major reinvestment in that facility until a decision is made regarding long-term use of the site. We have, as has been the case in several other centers throughout Ontario, amalgamation of curling clubs has been a reality for many clubs. They are finding that they're stronger together. They're able to offer extensive programs. They're also able to offer an increased membership that can support newer, whether it be capital improvements or what have you. Our recommendation is for the club to continue to investigate options to amalgamate with area curling associations. Midland, most notably, they have a very old facility themselves. But that is work that's going to have to continue over the next number of years. And really that's at the discretion of their curling club to move that forward. Based on those discussions and what will come out of them, and up to the curling board, we have included options for a 5-sheet curling facility within a new recreation complex. So all of this is, if I didn't mention it off the top, I will now. This study really provides sort of the next phase of evidence for council, but there's more work ahead of us. So I do want to underscore that a lot of the decisions around the specific components and their design are yet to be made and will be made in the fullness of time. Next slide. So we talk about multi-use space, whether that be indoor track, gymnasium, multi-use space, space for seniors and youth programming, and all of that is really supported should the town decide to move towards a new facility. A gymnasium in particular is a very flexible and pliable space. It can be used for not only sports and a variety of sports, including the ever popular pickleball, basketball, volleyball, badminton, what have you, but other unstructured drop-in activities, community meetings, gatherings, events, festivals, Winterama, what have you. Next slide. And then other spaces, we wanted to allow for the opportunity for leasable floor space. That would include things like the Penetanguishene Sports Hall of Fame, a concession area, retail pro shop. So those have been considered in a new build option. Around an indoor pool, this is we know this is a common request in many smaller communities, particularly communities that do not have municipal pools themselves. We are not recommending that this facility, if built new, does contain. We are not recommending an indoor pool within the first phase of this work. There is access through an agreement with the Waypoint Health Center. There is also a small, more therapeutic pool that's available at Georgian Village. So there is some opportunity locally, and certainly there's the Midland YMCA. each of them have certain restrictions. We recognize that, but the town is very happy and pleased with the relationship they have with Waypoint, particularly for learn to swim programming, and have indicated that that is working well for the time being. But the future is always hard to write and hard to know. So, should those circumstances change, we want to be able to allow for expansion potential within a facility for amenities that may be needed down the road. Next slide. So this slide just really summarizes the facility needs as they are. This gives us a chance to really start to fine tune what the building program and what the cost may look like for a facility. So you'll see in really all of the new build options, it includes those items, those 8 items that are within the box on the left-hand side: a single ice pad, an indoor walking track, gymnasium, large hall similar to the Brian Horser Hall, activity studio, boardroom, space for Sports Hall of Fame, tenant space, support space, that's always necessary. And we are promoting future expansion opportunities and potentially outdoor amenities. That was not a focus of this work, but indoor, outdoor can work well together. There may be some efficiencies if there are needs within your community. So those are the base components that are included in all new build options. The optional component that you'll see as I present some of the options is a second pad of ice. And that second pad of ice may be used potentially for curling, or it may potentially be used for ice team sports such as ice hockey and figure skating down the road. The dimensions are a little bit different, so that needs to be thought through, but there is that opportunity for it to become more of a twin pad, whether it's curling or both sort of hockey pads. Next. So all of this led to, you'll see really four different options. 2 of them are similar in the middle, that we worked on some concept plans and costs relative to. First option, and this is very much an option. I know I've been talking a lot about a new build, but reinvesting and retrofitting what you have. We don't see this as a 40-year solution or a 50-year solution as new facilities are, but we do see it as an option for council to consider. So if they wanted to put more, reinvest and retrofit to the degree that they can within the existing facilities. Renovation is the first option. Second option is new build or partial new build. One of those would be all of those components that I discussed on the previous slide with curling, and then the second option being partial new build would be without curling, so more of sort of single pad vision. The third option is a hybrid approach, and it's being considered more just as within the spectrum of possibilities, and that would be to develop sort of that partial new build, so a new multi-use center without curling, and also then look at repurposing the arena as a curling facility. This is a short-term solution. I don't think anyone's suggesting this would be long-term, but should council decide that they want to reclaim that waterfront space for other needs, this could be an option that sort of bides time for curling, and it would be something that would need to be negotiated and worked at through further discussion. So I'll get into some of the details on each of these. Not too many. There is a lot in the report, so I would refer you to that if you want to get into the details on this. I will present a few design concepts, and we'll also talk about costs. And there's a few things to be aware of. This is the same slide we presented council, so that they understand when we are presenting costs, that it is apples to apples, and they understand what's included here. So these are preliminary. Any design concept you see is just that. It's preliminary. It will not, if it would not be built specifically to this design. It's only largely to show sort of massing and how the different components relate to each other. And then it's helpful for site evaluation. Other decisions that may impact facility components would be the availability of facilities in the region and the sustainability of local clubs. You know, I mentioned curling, also mentioned Hall of Fame, or other users if they decide that they want to be part of this process, or if they decide that they may not wish to participate. Those are decisions that are still yet to be made. The capital costs are Class D estimates, so there's a high degree of variability here. They will, you know, so there's a sizable contingency that's been included within that. Everything is shown in current year dollars, so they haven't been escalated for inflation, and they're full project costs, aside from land acquisition, but it's all the soft costs, so it's all the engineers, it's all the architects, it's all the permits, it's the taxes, it's the site development, it's the landscaping, it's the paving of the parking lot, and of course the construction of the building. So the costs that are being presented, and I'll touch on funding. Costs and funding are two different things. So I'll touch on funding in a moment. The operating costs are in the column down the middle. The renovation, that's essentially your current annual subsidy. We'll call it a subsidy. It's a tax. It's tax funded. That's what it costs to run the arena right now. A little bit under $300,000 a year. Under a new build, there's an expanded amount of space, so that dollar amount does increase. At the same time, it would be a more efficient operation from an energy perspective. The capital costs that are presented to just retrofit and do all the life cycle on option one, renovating your current facilities, would be a little bit over $7 million. The other options, obviously this is a new build. There's going to be a big difference between renovating and building new. So those costs range from 36.7 all the way up to $49.1 million. These costs would be refined over time. I think there's a hope that they would be that they would come down, but the decisions that the building committee and the town would make would really influence that. We don't like to put out costs that are unattainable. Right now, the labor market is quite strong. There's a lot of material shortages. This is based on current tenders. So the pricing of these facilities is at an all-time high. It is something that would need to be monitored over the course of time. Next slide. So location assessment. If the community were to build new, it cannot happen on the current site. We need a 4-hectare parcel in order to fit the facility and the parking associated with that. So it's about 10 acres. 12 sites were initially considered, but only 4 were really shortlisted because they only have the ability to accommodate the site itself. We looked at the former PSS site that's now town owned. We looked at Ojibwe Landing, really just to the south west of the curling club along the waterfront. There's a privately owned site owned by Morden Construction on the northeast end of town that was offered as a potential lease. We looked at that. And then there's undeveloped lands just to the south of the PSS site. We believe they're owned by Jordan Village. We did not, we didn't put in an offer or anything, but when we look around for sizable amounts of flat land, that one does come to mind. So those sites were evaluated. Next slide, please. Based on a series of different criteria, and were scored based on their ability to meet the needs of this project. The final scoring you'll see there, but I think what's important is the former PSS site scored the highest and is the recommended site for us moving forward in a new build scenario. So our recommendation that we're making through this study for town council's consideration is to pursue the development of a new multi-use recreation center. It will be some iteration of option 2. And there's different ways to devise how many seats you have and how large certain portions of that facility may be that may affect cost and functionality and programming. But some form of a new facility at the former PSS site. In order to get to that point, you need to continue with plans to replace the PMCC roof and other necessary life cycle projects. And what that means, the town has had a reserve for some roof repairs. They'll continue to make sure that that arena is available to the community until such time that it's replaced with a new facility. There's a need to develop a funding strategy and establish a capital reserve. Not all, certainly, you would look for many different ways of funding this facility, whether that be through fundraising, through grants. There's been quite a few senior government grants that have been available and may continue to be available. Look to develop, establish a building committee to oversee the project moving forward. And there's still those discussions that need to be had with the interest of the curling club and other major partners and how they would like to participate in this project. And then once the new recreation center is developed, the existing arena would be closed as an ice venue. There could be some potential reuse options for it. We would see those as being sort of short-term, interim, temporary options until such time as they're no longer viable. So I'm only pointing this out. We won't go into detail. If anyone's interested in how the spaces size, the sizing of various spaces, those are available in the study. It shows a little bit of difference. These are square footages between the arena enclosures, the curling club, which is in that option, one of the 2A options. Sizing of the different rooms, there would be 6 change rooms for the ice pad. They would be larger than existing, for example. So all that detail is contained in the report, as our concept plan. So next slide. You'll see these illustrate what a facility may look like on a 4-hectare parcel. This is sort of a full build if you went with up to 1,000-seat spectator ice surface with a gymnasium there. You see at the bottom, 5-sheet curling or potentially ice pad, second ice pad to the right there, and the parking that would be required for that. Next. These are just 3D renderings that illustrate what that might look like. Those are all in, we have those options defined in the report for all of the 3 different options. Next. And just some sample images for those, these were provided by the architect that's on our consulting team. And it just shows how facilities are being designed nowadays. So more natural light, obviously it needs to be the right exposure so as not to unduly impact ice quality, for example. Larger lobbies, fully accessible facilities. The corridors work really well, and lots of again, light, clean, easy to clean surfaces that are engaging for all ages and those that are coming to actually participate or to be a spectator. Next. These images show some of the dry land spaces that certainly, gymnasium that's not currently part of your municipal inventory, activity studio, a formal hall. Next. So a couple points before I wrap up and we get into discussion. And these are important points. It will take several years to realize this new facility. This study does, however, make the project grant ready. Additional consultation will be required with the community on location and facility design. So we're not designing, the specific look and fixtures and finishes and each space through this study. And those discussions will happen in the fullness of time. We've mentioned already, the inclusion of curling, for example, or even the Sports Hall of Fame for that matter, will depend on the ability to establish a suitable agreement. The study informs the town's long-term financial planning. There is no defined tax impact for this facility yet. What needs to happen is a funding strategy to be put into place to understand what sources of funding may be available and should be used to move this project forward. And ultimately, council will make the final decision on, to move forward based on your input, other stakeholder input, and the responsible and sustainable use of tax dollars. So I think that's pretty much it. We have just going to let you know, and we can always come back to this, but so for the balance of the meeting, we do have some open-ended questions. So those are the discussion, and I'll prompt you when you can participate in that. For that, physically raise your hand. Ideally, you can use the Zoom raise hand feature because that probably helps us find you a little bit quicker on the gallery view. We do also have the chat feature, so that is something that that you can use to illustrate your opinions. We do also have some polling. I'll come to that and exactly how that works in a moment. So next slide. So I'm not going to get into, there will be an opportunity for you to provide general comments. I think what we want to do, so we can get in through some of our polling and then get into that discussion first, is if there's any a need for any clarification on what was presented tonight or what's in the draft report. We'll spend a few minutes looking at this, and again, we will take your comments on future discussion topics, but really just looking for points of clarification. I know I covered a lot of ground. There may have been some areas that I didn't go into enough detail on, and I apologize for that. But now would be the time if you needed, if you had any questions of the study and how certain things were arrived at, I'd be happy to respond to that. So I see a point from Councillor Cummings. You have the floor.
I just thought I'd start it off here. In your demographics slide, you're looking at about a user group of about 23%. If we were to look at in terms of numbers, you're looking about 25 to 2,600 people user group. Is that survey that you did from Penetang proper, or is that the user group survey?
Okay, I'm failing in coming up with that reference. Could you point to it? You said something about demographics, but then you were talking about stakeholder user group. Is there?
I was looking at the, I think it's about the third slide in, where you showed the user groups, or you showed the population of users for this particular facility.
Sabrina, do you mind just moving back up to that slide? It would have been one of the earlier ones. Was it the one with the infographic? Just scroll down.
Yes.
Scroll down. Oh, yeah, 14.
Right there. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, moving forward, there are no age-based projections for the town. There are age-based projections for Simcoe County, so that's what's being reported on in that graph on the lower right. The core arena market, so the number of children themselves are going up by 13%. The number of youth are going up by 11%. The math doesn't work to add those together, but together as an age group, you know, the kids that use ice, essentially age 5 to 19, you know, they start a little bit younger than that. That's increasing by 12% on average over the next 10, 11 years. So, you know, that would suggest if participation rates stay stable, where we talked about later about 30% of your youth population participates in ice sports, we would see about a 12% increase in registration in those ice sports if participation rates remain stable. Does that answer your question?
So you're basically saying in Penetanguishene proper, if we were to expand to 11,400 by 2031, we're looking at about 3,400 kids that be using this, or 3,400 people, sorry, that would be using this facility.
I mean, for the ICE users, it would be 30% of the youth population. I don't.
Okay, Simcoe County then, not Penetang.
Again, we're using the data that's available to us. You know, I think a lot of the population trends that are experienced across Simcoe are experienced across a lot of the local area municipalities. But, you know, I think the takeaway that I get from this is, you know, the community is growing, whether it's by, you know, 12%, 15%, there is growth. So you will see additional pressure for ICE. You will see more notable pressure, I think, for various senior activities, though, as that age group. We know it's increasing faster than the remainder of the population, almost across the entire North America, for that matter, because of the baby boom population. So.
Okay, yeah, I've just, the only reason I'm asking that, Steve, is because I'm looking at Penetang taxpayers paying for a project that you're looking at statistics for Simcoe County for. That's really what I'm saying.
Okay.
And those are the only figures that you've got. That's, I mean, I understand that. You're looking at the town's population increasing to about 11,400 by 2031. And so that equates to probably about 3,400 users if you're looking at Penetang proper. And that's what I was looking at. So you're looking at Penetang tax dollars going towards a regional center versus a Penetang based center.
Well, and that's a good question of, you know, how much of this would be used by regional users. Certainly many of your ICE groups have a regional membership. That is a consideration. We're not looking at oversizing this to absorb additional users or a substantial number of users from Midland, for example. So any of the actual numbers that are presented in the report are any of the concrete numbers are Penetanguishene specific. So the only thing that's county specific on this particular slide is the one that's in the lower right, and we've used percentages for that. So I can, if you like, after the meeting, I'd be pleased to run some numbers for you if you have some more specific questions. So I think that's something we can do. Thank you. Were there any other points of clarification on the study or the presentation? And I see some in the chat, so we'll be sure to make those part of the public record. Okay, I'm going to move on to the second question here. And we have, so we have 4 questions in a row that are an interactive poll. And this is kind of a cool feature. We're going to give it a go. We recognize that not everyone may have the technology to make this work. But there's always the Zoom feature. So if you want to go back one, Sabrina, if you could. I think I have, oh, no, okay, you were right. Go forward. So you see on the right side of the screen, if we want to do this interactive poll, there's 2 ways of doing this. If you have a smartphone available to you, what's in front of you is a QR code. That funny thing that looks like a barcode. You can open up your camera and take a picture of it. It will lead you to a website. And then you can participate in the live polling that we do have. The alternative to that is to go to, if you have a browser available to you, www.menti.com, and you'll be prompted to enter a code. That code is on your screen. And I can read that through at the appropriate time. So this is what we're trying to do. We have 4 questions that we'd like to poll the group on. And I think we have about 25 individuals here. So I think there's value in doing this. The first question that's in front of you is what aspects of this project are you most excited about? The next question will be which ones are you most concerned about? And different options therein. So I would ask if we can, there's 3 ways to, again, to participate in this. If you can visit that menti.com, there's an 8-digit code that you'll be prompted to enter. Or if you want a shortcut to get there through your smartphone, you can scan this QR code using your camera app. And because I want this to give this a shot, and we've had good success with this in previous meetings, if anyone has any questions or concerns about, or challenges, I should say, with getting on here, feel free to unmute yourself and we can probably talk you through it. If none of this is your cup of tea, you can certainly use the chat feature and pick from those points, those bullet points along the left-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to move on to enable you to vote. Now I think we need to move to the next slide. So if you've gone to menti.com, you'll see the code at the top of the screen. It's 83900073, and we'll see if anyone has been able to get through to this and is able to participate in this. There we go. So you can sort of see how it's going to populate in real time. It used to be that we would, if we had a public open house or public meeting, we would actually hand out dots, physical dots, stickers, and we would have these up on the wall and give everyone a little bit of time to sort of understand the options and do their voting. So this is just now, since we've gone virtual, this is the way that we've had to move, and it's kind of fun to see how it works. And I think once you get the handle of it, you'll be able to respond to the next few questions. So we have 11 people. I'll just give maybe a couple more minutes. So one question, I'm assuming that the new facility includes new arena. Yes. Yes, I'd say we would interpret it that way. Great. So early leaders in the clubhouse, I think there's a few that are sort of near the top. Modern, updated facilities, new facilities, and that would be potentially, certainly arena, but also the gym, the track, things that you don't currently have. Creation of a multi-use hub. So thank you for doing that. I think that's interesting. There's a couple other, I should mention, there's no way you would have to put, if you had other things that you're excited about, I would ask that you put that into the chat. We will be saving the chat and adding that into this polling after the meeting. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So you can probably leave that browser or smartphone page up. And the next question now is the opposite of we just asked what you're most excited about. What aspects of this project are you most concerned about? We've tried to come up with those that are most relevant. I'll let folks, I'll give you 1 minute to read through that, and then you can respond on your device. Okay, if you want to move to you want to activate that, Sabrina, thank you. Again, if you're unable to participate in this through using Menti, feel free to put your vote in the chat. I see some that are in there. Thank you for that. So a lot around project timing, you know, the amount of time that it does take to move these things forward. And again, that's a pretty typical time frame, given where you're at. It could be accelerated, it could take longer. A lot of that it depends on sort of the next phases of the work, in particular, how that funding strategy comes together. You know, I see a point about, you know, the value of the land from a PMCC or PCC that could form part of this. That's not part of our report, but there are many ways that you can sort of try to secure funding for a facility like this. Impact on user fees, partner participation, lack of other facilities such as a pool. See those also being top responses. So thank you. We have a couple more polls, so let's move on to the next one. Facility components. You know, what spaces would you most like to see in the new facility? I saw a comment earlier about, you know, wanting certain things, but maybe not the track, or vice versa. So we've done our best to identify, I think, those key spaces that we've talked about as being base components or potentially base components within the facility. So if you want to click through to the next one, we'll open up voting. Again, if you did select other, if you wanted to embellish on that in the chat, please do so. We'll make sure that becomes part of the public record. So ice rink, I think that seems to be leading the way. Indoor track, gymnasium, possible second ice rink, large hall, curling facility. Lots of dots on this one. So it suggests we're maybe on the right track with some of this. Okay, give 30 more seconds for that in case anyone hasn't voted. Okay, and the last poll that we have for tonight before we get into broader discussion, and I'll leave this up for a moment just so you can, a bit of a reminder as to what each option entailed. Option 1, renovate, bring, you know, invest in the life cycle and retrofit the existing facilities as much as possible. 2A is a complete new build that would be replacing the arena, replacing the curling club, and all of those dry land components, the track, the gym, Sports Hall of Fame. 2B is what I just described, except for curling. So keep curling where it is on the waterfront, you know, and let that agreement run its course. And then the third one is essentially moving curling into the existing arena and replacing the arena itself with that new multi-use rec center. So if you want to move that forward, we'll open voting for that. Try not to let everyone else's votes influence where you want to be. We're curious where this is going to end up. Okay, so I think we have about 19 people in. I believe that's what we had. Give it 10 more seconds if you can get your vote in on that. I would say pretty strong support for the full build option of one iteration or another there. Building that new recreation center. I see some comments in the chat around, really enjoying the community hub aspect of it. That really is not part of your current infrastructure, and this would certainly be a new element that you don't have in your current inventory. So thank you for participating in that. I think that was very successful. So we do have a few slides left here, and really this is the open dialogue portion of this evening. So if you wanted, I'm just going to read through this so everyone has a sense of what we wanted to ask, but really it's open dialogue. Any questions or comments you have about the proposed facility options, we can answer that. Sabrina, if you just want to advance forward, I'll let you know we have a couple other topics. If you had any questions about the location, we can answer that. Go ahead. And then any final questions or comments. I mean, they're really all part of the same discussion. So maybe if you want to just go back to topic number 2, we can, but I would take any comments or questions that you have, and beyond those that have already been logged in the chat. So again, using that the raise your hand or even turning on your video, that we might be alerted to the fact that you want to speak. So I see a hand raised by an Adion.
Yeah, Aaron Dion.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you. Go ahead. I think we've lost Aaron for a moment. If Aaron, you might be muted. We can't hear you. Okay, we'll give Aaron a moment to maybe reconnect if that's the issue. But I'll make sure that to add you to the list, and we're able to loop back to you at some point. Hopefully he's able to come back online. Anyone else have a comment or question? I think, yeah, I see a hand here from Renee.
Steve, in your full study, you mentioned that there was a 2019 structural assessment report done for PMCC, but nowhere in your document does it state which company did it.
Okay. The town had contracted engineers prior to us being on stream, and we don't typically find that relevant. I'm curious where you want to go with that.
No, there was one done in 2012 by Yoles.
Okay.
And then there was one done in 2019. I just find that the company name should be noted in your report.
Okay. Well, we can certainly do that, and we can clean that up in the final version. I didn't realize it was a concern, but thank you for bringing that to my attention. I don't have the company name handy, but I do have a copy of the report, so we'll be sure to add that into the final report. Thank you. I thought I saw a hand from Councillor Cummings.
Thanks, Steve. I just, I don't know whether I missed it or not, but if you were to do a full build, what would that require as far as acreage is concerned, or hectares?
So a full build would be about a 4-hectare or 10-acre site. That would include parking. That would include some degree of expansion potential. Certainly, if you're looking to add any major components, you may have to be a little bit more creative. And if you're on a shared site, there's a potential for shared parking, but we've based it on a 4-hectare land base.
Thank you.
I'm going to come back to Aaron. Aaron has his hand up. Aaron, are you back with us?
I'm back. Sorry, poor internet in the rural area here.
No problem.
So just back to my 2 points. I think there's a good need, a great need for a new rink. And then there's also an impact that a new rink could have on our great town. So need, we use Penetanguishene Minor Hockey, just Penetanguishene Minor Hockey uses. So right now we have 13. If I could break it down and simplify things, we have 13 ice time slots for just practices. And normally we have 14 to 15 teams. So as it turns out, hockey is becoming a sport where parents and kids want to get on the ice a little more. So we can't just have one ice time for practice per week. We're often looking at 2 practices a week. And now with Hockey Canada's new approach to training, there's going to be more practices than games. So there's going to be an increased need there. An increased need when you're talking about the population. Yeah, 12% in Simcoe County in the town, but also like that includes Tiny Township, Bosley Island First Nation. So there's going to be a greater need for our youth, especially after this year. We're going to be marketing for more registration. So hopefully we're going to get more registration coming in and new players coming out. And then for also with need, like there's a need for a new rink because there's a lot of risk and liability, I think, for the town. Starting with number one, there's no female or transgender change room for our players. Right now, there's 4 change rooms that we're able to use, maybe a 5th, depending on if the Kings have a home game. So that's a big problem when we have players that come into our town who are female or transgender, and we don't have a change room for them. It's very embarrassing. So there's no simple solution in the current situation. And then liability, it's unsafe. Like the boards and so on. I know that the staff, Sherry, Roy, have been doing a great job, but the rink is just unsafe in terms of capacity and the condition of our rink, our arena. Next, number 2 would be impact. There's going to be increased rec use, so we can get more kids out, and we can have our kids being a little more active, and our elderly as well. More importantly, PMHA would like to make Penetang the Mecca of hockey in Ontario. So we would love to host tournaments. Ymca can come back, especially for our younger age groups. Now with the change in OMHA with playoffs, and then also in the summertime, why not have tournaments? You look at Huntsville and they have tournaments every single weekend, and they bring people to their community every weekend and in different tournaments, and we can host that. Not to mention ball hockey and lacrosse. So there's a need and there's an impact. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. And can I clarify, I should ask anyone if they're representing a group just to identify themselves as such. Aaron, I assume you're with Penetang Minor Hockey?
Yes, Penetang
Okay.
Minor Hockey.
Thank you for that. So, I can say a few things around that. I don't disagree with most of your points, frankly. We know the current arena, pre-COVID, was very well used. Prime time is tough to come by in any community. There really is no additional prime time available, and that tends to be when the kids are they're out of school and it's not too late. So it is a challenge. We think the arena itself is during the winter season is currently at capacity. So we're sensitive to that. I think moving forward, why we said is usually we look for the demand to build to a point where it's going to get uncomfortable for a time. And then you can sort of justify a second ice pad. And because of the growth of the community, it is slower growth. Again, it might be noticeable for you in it being a smaller community, but it is slower growth. We don't see that happening to a point, you know, until farther into the future, but some options have allowed for that opportunity. You know, in terms of a new build would offer modern change rooms. It would offer more change rooms, larger change rooms, the ability to accommodate a variety of different genders. So, you know, that's definitely a big consideration. It would be fully accessible and barrier free. They've done what they can with the existing arena. You know, in terms of tournaments, those opportunities I think are there, particularly at the shoulder season. It gets a little bit harder during the course of the year. So I'm just going to take a moment. I'm going to come to Jamie in a moment. I see him with his hand. I also want to recognize some of the comments that we're getting in the chat.
Sorry, Steve, can I just add before, sorry, I hate to interrupt, but
Go ahead.
we've looked into tournaments, feasibilities of tournaments. There's no way we can run feasible tournament without 2 ice pads.
Oh, okay. From that
So I'm
perspective.
not saying that's exactly what we need, but if we do share with Midland, you can guarantee that those people will be staying in those Midland hotels.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks.
So before I come to Jamie, just you know, I think there were some comments around the Midland YMCA pool. Yes, it does have its you know, it's not the newest facility. It does have membership fees. They do have a day use fee. YMCA's are not for everyone. We recognize that, and we're not suggesting that it's a full replacement for a municipal pool, but it you know, it is available within the community for those that are members. In particular, the Waypoint, I think, is the one that the town has a current partnership with, and they feel that's working well in terms of leveraging lessons, learn to swim. Indoor pools themselves are, you don't tend to see communities of your size offer indoor pools. We do this level of planning across the province, and what we find is indoor pools become more feasible in and around a population of 35 or 40,000 people. Again, if you're planning for that as a region, that's one thing. If you're planning for that as a town, that's another thing. A couple other questions. So I think Greg had a question around needs for ice surfaces, 1 or 2. Again, we recognize that the demand, you know, I think I answered that a bit to Aaron. There is a capacity issue, but because of the way it builds over time, it is tough. If ice pads in Midland were to become less accessible, I think if demand were to change in terms of participation rate, I think that should be looked at, and that's why we've allowed for expansion potential within the envelope of this facility itself. There was a question around if there's an intention to build a curling rink, make it convertible to a pad that can be used for summer ice time use for lacrosse and ball hockey. I think that's a great idea. They would have, I think, any ice pad, whether it be for curling or ice, would have a concrete surface, so it would allow for that within the seasonality of the various sports. So that's great. And so we had some comments around, I think, the previous engineering reports. We will address some of those as best we can through alternate means. And one question around, would a new build have a large enough ice plant to incorporate 2 pads? Yes, that's easily possible. You would, you know, obviously need certain, you know, an additional compressors and mechanical systems, but 2 ice pads operationally can be, from a staffing perspective, just as efficient as running 1 ice pad. So there are efficiencies there. We've recognized that in the report. And, is a new build with seats on one side cheaper than seating all around the ice? Yes, that is absolutely true. Seating can have a real impact on price. You'll see that's the difference between about 46 million and 49 million in some of our scenarios. And a lot of it is just the span that you have. So if you did bowl seating, the span is larger, the girders, everything's larger. If you did banked sort of bleacher seating on one side, you can also run the change room corridor down that side as well. So there are efficiencies that way. So I think I've addressed that. I'd like to now, Jamie, you had your hand up. You have the floor. Jamie Robillard.
Hello, Steve, and everyone else. Can everybody hear me?
We can, Jamie. If you're with a group, could you just identify that?
Yes, I'm with the Midland Minor Ball Hockey League. We're more of an area program. We also use the North Simcoe Sports and Recreation Center. Our program, one of the things that Tim Garrett mentioned was the playing surface. If a curling rink is built, if it is convertible, as you said, in the summer for use, we would most likely use that on a regular basis. We had looked at the curling club a number of years ago, but the current curling club in Penetanguishene, and unfortunately, we just could not come up with an agreement that would work without doing damage to the building, because it doesn't have some type of boards that would likely see damage in the building simply because the ball gets shot all over the place by the kids. For those that are aware, the Penetanguishene arena, current arena, has one of the best, if not the best, cement surfaces in Ontario to run on. You don't slide on that surface unless someone spills water. Hopefully the consideration to the new facility will be to have a surface similar to what we currently have. If we rank the 3 pads we currently use, Penetanguishene far and away better than the 2 pads in Midland. The Midland Minor Hockey pad in Midland better than the Centennial Arena pad in Midland. And we've played ball hockey all over the place with provincial teams, and we rarely come in contact with another arena floor even close to ours. I think that's one of the reasons we've had so much success with our players being selected to play internationally, is that they play here very comfortably and build their skills quickly on a good playing surface. Finally, with the current arena, it's going to be a number of years before the new facility is built. What absolutely has to be done in this building to keep it functioning currently?
So a couple points. Thank you, Jamie. We're aware that you guys love the current concrete surface there. So, I think that's, I won't get into, I don't know the details of design and how that would work, but, in terms of ball hockey access to a new facility, that would have to be worked out, and the design would have to be worked out, and, making sure that the seasonality of your sport is able to mix with the seasonality of the other sports. But I would say that, those are absolutely opportunities, that can be considered down the road. So in terms of the existing facility, the existing arena, it's all life cycle elements that were identified in the engineering report. So it's things like the roof, it's things like the ice slab itself and the refrigeration lines underneath, and the dasher boards are largely original. They have reached a point where they are recommended for replacement. Staff feel that they can get some more time out of them, and to some degree that's likely true. But when you do have a failure, you have a failure, and you have to act on that. And given the age of those amenities, that is a key part of it. All the other life cycle things that you can think of, if you think of you know, a lot of these facilities are kind of like your car. At some point, you're going to have to change the timing belt. You're going to have to do, you know, those regular oil changes, the tires, the brakes, everything comes up. So you'll see within that 6 million, it's everything from parking lot repaving to updating lighting, various finishing and fixtures. So, but the big ticket items are roof, dasher boards, ice slab, and I believe some other site items were in that. It's all documented in the engineering reports.
Okay, thank you.
So I see a couple. I'm just going to go back to the chat. Any thought being given to a cultural center integrating Aboriginal and Métis offices? We did speak with, and I apologize, I might get the name of the group wrong, but the Métis Council. They did express an interest. We know they've been in the area for some time and looking for a permanent home for a cultural center. One of our recommendations is to, you know, if the town makes a decision to move forward with this new facility, is put out a call for proposals from potential partners. So, you know, I think those types of partnerships can be very effective. We're not negotiating partnerships through this study, but we would like to see an openness and willingness to consider those things as the details of the facility take shape. And a comment around smaller training pads, you know, have like smaller ice surfaces. You know, we see those on occasion in facilities. They do tend to be more, I think, as you say here, sort of private rinks, training centers. They don't tend to be, aside from maybe the small shooter pads or small goalie pads, they don't tend to be a municipal level of service. So I wouldn't say we gave strong consideration to that. I think, you know, we look at ice pads that can meet the broadest range of needs, and those do tend to be NHL size pads that can be booked 60 plus hours of prime time a week, and then, you know, a reasonable amount of non-prime. And, but, you know, there are some newer rinks that are being designed with those smaller pads. They tend to be maybe 15 by 20 feet. I'm thinking of those. If you're talking a 3-on-3 pad, that's not the type of ice surface that is a municipal level of service. So are there any other questions or comments from, and thank you for the clarification, Renee, around the arena mechanicals, around TSSA accreditation. And, you know, those are absolutely key operational considerations. There's a lot of operational considerations we would need to look at. You know, if you were running an operation with curling and hockey, certainly the mechanicals can operate both, but you're going to have different maintenance requirements as well. So those are details that would have to be worked out once all of those, all the ducks are in a row, so to speak. Any other questions or comments for us? It could be on facility provision options, it could be on location, it could be on anything that we've touched on tonight. If you want to use the raise your hand feature, I see a comment, you know, question from grant possibilities from the province and federal government. Yes, those are very real possibilities. I won't get into specifics because we haven't, the programs have been changing quite rapidly. They're all very much COVID recovery based right now. The senior governments have an interest in getting people back to work. They also have an interest in making sure that infrastructure is sustainable. So, you know, even things like ventilation and energy efficiency tend to be scoring a lot of points, and there are opportunities for that. So there's been a recent infrastructure stream around the ISEP program. There will be additional streams. That was intentionally, it started pre-COVID and was intended to be a 10-year program. So we do anticipate other intakes that are available in the future. So, you know, staying in touch with your local MP and MPP are always good suggestions. So if anyone else wants to speak, just let you unmute your microphone, and we'll give you one last chance before we do wrap up. Okay, Sabrina, do you want to advance until the final slide? Okay. So in terms of next steps, well, certainly thank you for participating. I should start there. You never know how these things are going to go online. I think as the pandemic drags on, we're getting a little bit more used to, everyone's getting a little bit more used to virtual consultation. Aspects of it are not ideal, but I thank everyone for working their way through it and listening to the presentation. There's a lot more detail in the report. We will be taking additional comments up until the end of the month. If you want to direct those to Sherry Desjardins, she's the Director of Recreation and Community Services at the town. Her email's on the screen. Her email can also be found on the Connect Penetanguishene site. We will be bringing this to council later this summer. Again, if council moves forward with this, there will be additional consultation on design. This is something that will take a number of years, but this report gets the ball rolling, so to speak, and gives the town a game plan to move forward. There will be additional community consultation as we understand. I think council's committed to this around the PSS site and future uses. As much as we're recommending this facility for that site, we know that there's a lot of considerations relative to location. And we will be putting this presentation up. Give us a couple days, but it will be going up on the connectpenetanguishene.ca website if you wanted to share it with others, or certainly you have a record of public input. So with that, I want to thank again everyone for participating, and get those emails in. Thank you for listening to me. I know it can be it's quite a lot to take in, but we appreciate your participation, your comments. We will be making sure that all comments are part of the public record, and will be part of the report that moves forward to council. Sherry, did you have any final words?
Just on behalf of the town and the steering committee for the project, Steve, thank you so much for tonight's presentation and fielding all the questions. As you can see, our community and our user groups are very passionate about this facility, and it's nice to see the support and the interest that has been expressed tonight. And should council, move forward with the consultant's recommendation, we have a lot of work ahead of us and a lot of consultation, collaborating, partnership development to do. So please don't hesitate to send me any further feedback, and I will pass it along to Steve, and we'll keep everyone up to date on next steps as council makes some decisions on this report.
Excellent. Thank you, Sherry. Again, thank you again for the input. It's been super, and we'll be sure to reflect that in the final report. Have a good evening, everyone.